Right. Okay, afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Inspirational Alumni webinar series. Tonight, I'm delighted to have Nu Shearman joining us. She's an alumna from Brookes, and she is also a leather enthusiast and the creative director and founder of Hide and Hammer. Welcome, Nu. Hi. And just to tell our audience that it's in a recorded session, and it'd be great if we could have some questions for Nu at the end of our discussion. There'll be time, 10 minutes at the end for questions. Thank you very much. Okay, well, welcome again. It's great to have you here this afternoon. It's sunny afternoon in the UK.
It's a lovely day today. We've got really nice weather.
I know, it's amazing. It's like summer.
So it's supposed to snow next week, so I'm making the most of it at the moment.
Oh gosh, yes. Let's start at the top. So you're an alum of Brookes.
Yeah.
What course did you study at Brookes?
So I did a joint honours. I did communications with marketing as well, and they complemented each other really nicely. The communication side of things touched a lot on the psychology, like human psychology and things, which I found really interesting. Because even though, so I'm neurodiverse is the classification. I have ADHD with different comorbidities that go with it too. And I didn't realize it at the time, but the whole sort of sociology side of things that was involved in the human communication side, I found very interesting. And now it kind of turns out why. So wow. I did the joint studies at Brookes, and I was at Harcourt campus quite a lot, which I have a family connection to as well. So that was really nice too.
Oh yeah, it's lovely up there. Right.
Yeah.
So you studied at Brookes, and was that a 3-year degree?
Yeah, it was meant to be a 4-year with a gap year in the middle, but I was working so I had a management apprenticeship contract with Toys R Us, but it was caught short because they went into all sorts of receivership and things, so I ended up doing a 3-year rather than the 4-year course.
Okay. And thinking about your steps after Brookes, and going into being an entrepreneur and opening your own business, at what stage did that happen, and what was your journey into deciding that's the direction you'd like to go in?
So here's the really interesting thing. I tried to force myself into corporate roles repeatedly because I thought that was the right thing to do. I wasn't given the option growing up that a creative role might be a possibility. I came from a background where that wasn't really an option. Even though my father's self-employed, it was never really encouraged. So there was always this thing where you'd do school, you'd go to university, you'd get a degree, and then you'd go into the job for the rest of your life, and it made me physically ill repeatedly, and I just ignored it because I thought that that's still what you had to do. I worked for shops. Basically, I came out of university in the time where they were cutting jobs, the last sort of, it's not depression, but the last financial crisis pre-COVID. And then the marketing and communications jobs were the first jobs to get cut. They're like, we don't need it, just done. There was no huge social media presence. It was sort of, we were still getting into that kind of Facebook, Instagram adverts and things like that. Like adverts weren't a thing that were constantly on Instagram and Facebook. So there was still like a lack of jobs in that department, in that area. And so as a result of that, I had to fall back on experience that I had before, which was sales. I worked for a company in Chipping Camden, where I grew up, for years. And so I fell back on my sales experience, and I ended up managing 2 adult entertainment shops.
Adult entertainment.
Yeah, because that's where the job was. And funnily enough, they paid well enough for me to then move to London, and I, worked there for a bit. It wasn't until I met my husband that the creative side of things in the creative industry started to open up for me as a possibility. My father-in-law is a artist, and he's an incredibly good raku potter. He used to work for Wedgwood, and it just an absolutely fantastic maker.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law as well. She's an incredibly good designer and maker. And it didn't even occur to me that this might be a path that would be interesting to me. And as it happened, as these things do, I started working for a woman who makes shoes. And I started doing crochet work for her. So we made the crochet uppers of what I made, the crochet uppers, and then she made the rest of the shoe. And they were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And that's when I really started to get involved with the whole creative side of things. And then from there, I have always loved leather. The smell of it, it's just a tactile product. I didn't realize that was so intrinsically linked to me wanting to make things with my hands. So I'd been doing leather work like on and off and trying to teach myself. This was sort of like with some really grainy YouTube videos. It was like you had to wait for sort of half an hour for the video to load before you even got anywhere with it. And then it was that kind of spurred me on to then like train as a saddler for the love of that stitching and that process. And then from then I dared to get pregnant and have a child.
Congratulations.
Then there's no place for, and it's very difficult to maintain that as a parent. So I needed something that would fit in around me, my life, my new baby at the time. That was 4 years ago. And so I took the leap and set up on my own, and that's where I am now.
And I mean, what a sort of discovery of what your passions are. It's interesting to see how that happens, and I think probably a lot of people have that. They have the family pressure, or the not really a role model in the family who's done something, whatever they want to do, and it's a more challenging pathway, isn't it?
And it's interesting to see as well how far we've come with the whole, like with the COVID and everybody working from home and things, and like being able to take more time to do things because you don't have that hours commute either way or whatever it is. I think the traditional ways of working have been changed so dramatically over the last 2 years that they'll either go back to the way they were and they will be expected to fit into that again, or people like myself will be given more of an opportunity from a younger age to explore maybe not working in a corporate environment, or maybe working like around certain aspects of their personality that may or may not have been overlooked before. I think that's really important.
And how, so going back to the title of our webinar about the neurodiversity and creativity, how do you think that sort of you're saying about the ADHD, how has that affected what you've needed from a work place and what you've been able to find for yourself?
So I'm knitting at the moment, and I'm knitting not because I'm being rude, and not because I'm being quirky or different or anything like that. I'm doing it because if I don't, then my hands end up all over my face, my hair, like I fidget an enormous amount, and I just thought that was a problem. I find it very difficult to make and maintain eye contact during conversations. So sometimes people think I'm being rude when I'm really not. I'm just taking in 150 other things that are going on around the world, like around me. There's a huge evidence to suggest now that I think it's 20% of the population has ADHD in a neurodiverse capacity. But it's very underdiagnosed in women, and it has been repeatedly underdiagnosed in women because we don't necessarily exhibit the same traits as the typical ADHD patient. I say typical because there is nothing typical about it. And so trying to fit myself into a workplace where you have to sit at a desk still and you're expected to produce work on a certain thing. I struggle with timelines, I struggle with deadlines, I struggle with like overly bright light sometimes, or substantial amounts of noise that I can't control. And it sounds like I'm creating problems for myself by trying to work in an office. And I didn't realize this. I just thought that that's what you had to do, like that everybody felt like me. And yet, you know, and sometimes because of the way that my brain is wired, I can't make these connections until people point it out to me. I received my ADHD diagnosis in 2020. I was a late diagnosis. And I went through the roller coaster of what would life have been like had I have been diagnosed earlier versus like, you know, what it is now. And I hadn't realized at that time that I'd started to collect people in my life that were already there to, you know, pick you back up again, which is great. But most notably in business, where my business coach turned around to me and said, well, you've achieved this with it and without knowing it. So think what you can do now and just get on with it. But the more research I do about it, the more research I find that people with ADHD have a higher capacity for creativity. They have a great ability to think with their gut. So they make decisions based on a gut feeling and a gut instinct. And when I've made decisions in the past that have been against it, they've always been the wrong decision. It got to the point where my hand was forced, you know, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's a very interesting way to run a business. But I think that they say women and men with ADHD are 300% more likely than a neurotypical person to start a business of their own, an entrepreneurial business. And I think that's got a lot to do with the fact that the modern, in inverted commas, because I don't know what that really is, the modern workplace doesn't have or isn't as accepting, and it's just not a nice environment for us to work in. And that's, you know, that's just the way that it is. So I think that without it, I don't think I'd be here, but at the same time, it's infuriating some days.
I mean, I suppose that must have felt like you were putting a sort of, you know, what is it, a square peg into or whatever the other way around, square into a round hole all the time, going into the office and trying to get through it. And
yeah, I mean, it was okay-ish when I was younger because I'd brush it off. As I got older and my symptoms got worse without me realizing it, the only way I can describe it is feeling like you're going insane inside your own head. And it just nothing really fitting right. And it wasn't until my diagnosis, and then I got a very high diagnosis. So they diagnose you on the attention deficit disorder and the hyperactivity disorder, and the attention deficit is sort of top whack, and the hyperactivity is 7 out of 9, I think. So it wasn't until my diagnosis that I was just like, oh, and I've been living with this. Oh, and that's not the normal way to behave. Oh, and I get it. And with it comes things like executive dysfunction. So executive dysfunction, I can only describe as feeling like you missed the last day of school where everybody else is taught how to navigate the world and you're not.
Okay.
Like you missed that the last day where everyone's like, oh, okay, so this is the level of things, the order of things that things are done. And this is the way that we do it. And of course, trying to learn how to do that in an office environment or in a workplace environment, it feels like everybody else knows what they're doing and you're learning it all for the first time. So it's so you're always one step back and feeling like you're trying to catch up all the time. Exactly.
Oh gosh. So the fact of working, you know, a sort of creative, but you're actually making things with your hands is actually very beneficial for the way you obviously the creative side, but also using physically using your hands and being an active role instead of sitting passively. I've tried many different ways of working with the business, because obviously owning a business means that you don't just wear one hat, you don't just make all day. I mean, that would be great if people could pay me to do that. That would be fantastic. But that's not the way that it works. So recently I've had Charlotte join my team. She has been absolutely phenomenal. She's amazing
in the office. She remembers things. It's incredible. You know, she keeps things organized. She remembers things. She has systems in place. And I just needed that. I needed that way of organizing me. So it wasn't just spending hours trying to find everything, trying to find things. And so she's brilliant. She works with me 3 days a week, and phenomenal. I have other creatives, one lady that has just left the company, and then I have another chap that works with me in the workshop. He works 1 day a week with me, but the rest of the time it's me and my son, and that's how we get things done. But the physical, so it's really funny, I get a feeling from the leather and things, and yeah, if I don't have a chance to make, I get quite het up, I think, like anxious, and being able to make things and see things come together really is, I find it incredibly beneficial to my mental health, to the way that I work, and I know that some people can find that frustrating, because I'm, you know, ping 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 the whole time. But
well, I mean, it sounds like that's your passion to make. It's nice to be able to do that still, not just do the sort of business side of things.
I think I'd fall apart if I did, and there were a few months where before Charlotte joined that I was just doing paperwork, accounts, you know, things like that. And the problem with that then is that I just completely lose the love for the business. I stop promoting it as much, I stop talking about it as much, and I stop enjoying it as much. And then that's when I really see a decline in it. So I have decided that, so the key thing for me to keep the business going is to hire outside my skill set, and to hire professionals that are paid just to do that. So we have a bookkeeper, we have an accountant, I have somebody that helps with my social media as well. I have Charlotte in the workshop, the office, and I have Ben that helps me in the workshop. And it's that constant sort of looking at and reevaluating things, and that's what keeps it going.
That sounds like you've got a good system going there of how to move forward and also get involved. But how long have you run your own business now? I was interested. How many years have you run it for?
So I've technically been self-employed for nearly 10 years, I think. And I dabbled in bits and pieces before, but it really started so this incarnation of Hide and Hammer started about 6 months after my daughter was born. I had made prototypes of the products that we sell now while I was pregnant, and I didn't know if they were going to sell. I wasn't sure, but I put them up online during my pregnancy, actually, and they sold out. And I thought, okay, so there might be something in this. And then after having my daughter, I was like, I didn't cope well at all. And I don't know if there are any parents listening that can also appreciate this. Sometimes first children, wow. It was. Well, it wasn't just shock. It was, I just couldn't cope, really. I still needed something that was me, but I couldn't find anything that was me in the maternity fuzz. And knowing what I do now about the way that my brain works, it's no wonder that I felt like I was sinking in it. My husband works shifts, so he wasn't there a lot of the time. And that witching hour between sort of 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the evening, so out of a necessity for me, my brain, and actually keeping everything together, that's when I found this workshop.
Okay, so the one you're in at the moment.
Yeah, so that was about that was 4 years ago now. Actually, almost to the month. It was 4 years ago in April, May, I think.
Okay, so you've been going for a little while. So you've got you've got established clientele. What kind of what have been your highlights so far of running the business? What are you doing that you've been excited about doing?
We've been featured on so it's funny, we're predominantly sell within the knitting industry, which I know is a weird thing to say, and I get a lot of funny looks, especially at family parties, when business minded people are sort of like, the knitting industry, isn't that just grannies? It's not at all.
No.
I mean, I'm testament to this, and apparently so is Tom Daly. And
I used to knit.
Did you? We should keep going. It's very good for your brain.
I know, I haven't done it for years.
We have a lovely selection of bags that we can but so we sell globally, internationally, predominantly in the UK and the USA. The USA make up a large proportion of our business. We have a very loyal clientele, which I'm incredibly lucky to have. We sell hang on, I've got one here, if you can see, because I've blurred it. So we sell like canvas and leather accessories. They are milled, so the canvas is milled and made within the UK, and then we make it all here. We have outsourced some help recently, but other than that, it's all made here. Career highlights were, we hit the VAT threshold for the UK within our first 12 months of serious trading, which was huge for me because I just did it as a hobby and I was on my own at the time and I never thought that would be possible. So we hit that within, I think it was 9 months of trading. So we had to VAT register. The company's now limited as well. And with that comes all sorts of interesting responsibilities. But
so you mean you hit the quantity you sold, hit that VAT?
Yeah, so it hit the VAT threshold. So that's, you're trading at 140
really well,
pounds, I think.
Yeah.
To hit that within any 12-month period. And considering it was just me, a workbench and a sewing machine, I think that was all right.
Brilliant. That was brilliant.
So I was quite pleased with that.
How did you get the ideas of how did you get inspired by what to create? What did you think? Is it just having that idea and looking what's out there? I
made the bag that I wanted. I made the bag that I wanted to use. So we started with leather bags. We started with little leather zip top bag. And at the time, there wasn't anyone that was marketing them or making them directly for the knitting industry. Obviously, they were everywhere. There've always been leather bags with zip. But at the time, they weren't the ones that I was making that were predominantly made for that purpose. So I started making them. And then I wanted a less expensive alternative. So I started to move to the canvas. And I used to make the canvas ones on there's a lady that I used to work for who makes horse bridles. She's an incredible maker. I used to hand stitch for her, and that is takes as long as it sounds. She used to hand stitch every single bridle. And that's so
a difficult job as well.
It is difficult and very physically demanding, but meditative in its own way. And but I made the first batch on her sewing machine, and it was on a flatbed. And I remember being I problem solved on my journey to and from work. I would problem solve how I was going to put it together, which bits would go. And then I remember the eureka moment, and I was just like, that's it. That's how it's going to work. I put it all together. So I made them. I made the bag that I wanted as a knitter, and here we are. They're still selling. They are
still selling. Product. Yeah. Amazing. So is there a community that you link up with? Is there a support group of makers that you can be inspired by, or how is the existence of being an entrepreneur and running your business? Is it a very not lonely because you've got your children, your family, but is it quite isolated?
It was to start off with.
Yeah.
And I have business friends that I talk to. I'm very lucky in where I live, in just under an hour away, one of my friends runs a knitting shop in Bath, and she's a phenomenal person. She's just starting her own coaching business coaching and things. Absolutely fantastic. And like I said, I'm very lucky in my friendship with her because we can talk business on a similar level. And she's one of those people that you can phone and ask for advice, or ask for a sense check every now and again. It's I want to do this, but And I am also very lucky that because I've been trading for about 4 years, I have collected people that are able to help me and able to keep me focused and I'm able to ask advice from on a professional level, because it's not something I would otherwise have. And it's happened sort of seemingly by accident, but actually there's some sort of very logical steps to how they've come into my life. But yeah, otherwise it can be a really lonely.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because as you know, obviously you've got a real eye for what just things you liked doing, and you're creating these wonderful bags which are selling, which because you've got a good eye for what's going to sell as well, things that you like. But it's just sometimes to have that kind of network and how that works really, and those kind of mentors or somebody at least you can just reach out to who are in a similar situation. It sounds like
my problem is as well that I want to, like, as soon as I come up with an idea, I want to make it, and I want to do all of the things, like in all of the colors and the everything. Yeah. But actually honing that down into a marketable, sellable product, that's fine. I can make that, but then it needs to be like analytically. You need to look at it, which color, which thing, what does the data say? Yeah. And it's like at that point you're like, oh, I don't care what the data says, I just want to make the thing. Yeah. Like, you need, like, now we've got to the point where the business where I have to not have to care, but I have to look at the data and I have to look at the things like that. And being able to work with people like I do at the moment, and it all started by having a business coach. So if anyone's listening and they're in a situation like in a small business, or actually even if you've got a large business and you don't already have a coach, I would highly recommend like a life and business coach. They need to work together. So if you can find somebody that does both, that's great. Because there's no point in going to your business coach going, oh, I've got X problem, and it's all linked to your personal life. It's not like it needs, you know.
Yes. We've got a coaching pool at Brooks, it's been very popular, and trying to get managers to be more the style of coaching with the employee, with their managees.
And even if it's just somebody to bounce ideas off, you might be kind of a person like I am, where I need to communicate things, and as soon as I start talking about an idea, that idea forms properly, and you're like, oh yeah, no, I didn't think that through. It just needed somebody to sound off against. It's been brilliant.
That sounds really good that you've got that network set up, and good advice for any budding entrepreneurs, business people who are listening in.
It's people holding you accountable as well, like somebody holding you accountable. So if you have a meeting with them and they're like, so have you done this? And you're like, no. Like, right, well, next time we meet, you need to have got this done, whether it's finding a PA or finding a something, or that. Having somebody to hold you accountable means that it sticks, and you're like, okay, I'll go and do that now.
Because you can put things off, can't you? We all just carry on with business as usual,
especially when there's something more shiny to do.
Something more interesting.
That's it. The new project is always more exciting, and then you end up bottoming out because you've just expended all of your energy in the place that you didn't need to.
I know. I suppose that's part of being, getting as you're developing your business, is that it's got bigger, and you need to find the projects which are going to sell, I suppose, and that are going to be profitable, and
falling into the trap of thinking that you can do it all yourself. Wow, I can tell you now, you can do it all yourself, but you won't make it any further than just burnout repeatedly. If you work out what your strengths are and you stick to what your strengths are, delegate. Find somebody to delegate to. I use a company called Spare My Time in London. I've hired virtual PAs from them, and I hire my bookkeeper from them as well. Just get rid of that. Get rid of that stress. That whole thing.
I think that's a good tip as well, isn't it? It's just, if you've got core business to get on with, you can't do everything. You can, but you won't move forward.
Well, and my reasoning is you can pay yourself to do it, or you can pay somebody a little bit more an hour to do it in a third of the time. It's like, there's a reason that these people have trained in those fields, and it's because that's their speciality. That's not your speciality. And it's the trap that I find a lot of people get into, because I've spoken to so many of my friends that are like, I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready to do that. And I'm like, you're only not ready to do it because you can't hand it over physically. Like you don't feel like you can let go of that. Whereas if you did, your business would just because you would have more time to do the things that you are excellent at.
Yeah, well, it's like that in lots of small teams actually as well. You get people trying to, shoehorn people to do, designer work when you think, well, I've never done design in my life.
That's it.
Do a bit of layout, but
that's it.
That's a professional area,
Oh, it is. It's like, oh yeah, I used a bit of Photoshop once. Yeah. Oh great, you can use Photoshop. Brilliant.
Yeah, you can design that, and it's just hours and hours. It's like, yes, I've been there.
Yeah, the late night Googling sessions of, oh my God, how do I do this?
Yeah, cut and paste. Oh. But yes, no, that's a good tip as well. Delegate, let go.
Yeah, for your own mental health as well, and for your own sanity, and for the fact that, at some point your friends and partner, and if you've got kids, would also like to see you too.
Yeah, that's the thing. And moving on to, that sort of side of things, how does that work with the sort of, working from home and having your kids often with you, or your youngest with you in the day? How do you manage that with the work life?
So I have a very sore back.
Oh.
No, my kid is amazing. I couldn't do this with my daughter. My daughter is a veritable live wire, and she is incredible. She's going to change the world in her own special way, but she's not as chilled out as her brother. And so being able to bring my son to work with me is the only way I can function and keep this going. He has just had to, if you have two kids, I think from speaking to people, a lot of the time the second one does just have to get on with it, especially if you have a really full on number one. And
yes, I've got the same.
Yeah, and they do just, like, he is brilliant. He's so chilled out. As long as he's fed, dry and slept, he's fine. But luckily I work with people that have had kids, that understand kids as well, because otherwise, that can be quite challenging. In terms of work-life balance, I think it's just a constant juggle. My husband works shifts, so he's very rarely he works shifts over a 10-day period. So some weeks he can have my son over 2 days on his rest days, whereas other weeks we just don't see him as much at all, and the childcare is left with me. My daughter thankfully goes to nursery. We've got a really good nursery just down the road, and she's gone to nursery for a while. And I'm very lucky that I can afford that, because it's not an option that's open to anybody, to everyone. My family don't live anywhere sort of close enough to do regular childcare, but my husband, his parents help out every now and again as well. So it's like the balance is, and the juggle is real. But if you come to the workshop, you'll be confronted by two dogs. So the dogs come to work too. And
you've got two dogs.
So I've got a Hungarian Vizsla, and Charlotte has the most amazing Basset Hound. So you bring your dog to work as well. It has to work around. The reason I set the company up at the end of the day is because I couldn't find an employer that would employ me after just having a child, being in my very early 30s, knowing full well that I was possibly going to have another one, although I didn't want to at the time. There's that prejudice that's already there, and you walk into an interview almost apologizing that you've had a child, I'm really sorry, I have to do the thing with the childcare, which it shouldn't be like at all. And I'm trying to build this workplace so that it's not like that at all. We have flexible working to work around childcare. We have children that join us in the workshop. I am the worst person for opening up the laptop at 11 o'clock at night to answer emails or things as well. But then that's my choice, because it's my business. I would never expect that of anybody that works with me. And I think there has to be, although to be fair, and now I've had two kids, it's not so much as 11 o'clock at night anymore. I don't see 11 o'clock at night anymore.
I was thinking, gosh, superhuman.
I see 4 o'clock in the morning a little bit too regularly.
Oh gosh.
But we go to bed early, and then I wake up early now, which I again never thought I would be, because I was always not a morning person. But yeah, the weird thing as well is that you have a mobile phone device in your pocket that is your business now.
Yeah.
So where you'd normally do a 9 to 5 and you go into your place of, well, I say normally, before you'd go into your place of work and that would be your place of work. You'd do your work and you'd go home. Yeah. Now we have access to, as entrepreneurs, as business people, as whatever I am, a CEO, a creative director, a person, somebody that just loves what they do and they're passionate enough to try and turn it into a business. You're able to do that with minimum amount of kit now, because your phone is so powerful. You can run a business almost through your phone. And you have that ability. So the work-life balance thing, I don't have it squared away, because I haven't been known to answer emails and things while my daughter's sitting next to me on the sofa, which I know she doesn't enjoy. But it's that, like, again.
Well, it sounds like you've got a good balance, though, in the respect as you've got being able to work with your kids around, or the more.
Well, we've all had to, haven't we, for the last 2 years? Everyone.
No, I know, it's true. Cats, animals, they're all around. Everything's changed a bit, hasn't it? With even with the office workers who are at home now, and or between probably starting to go back into offices, but.
I mean, yesterday, for example, my daughter spiked a fever yesterday evening, and she's very rarely ill. So when something like that happens, that it's not great. So she spiked a fever and then spent the next day on the sofa. So that was yesterday. I mean, I'm going to say it was written off for me, but at the same time, it's not a write-off, is it? Because that's the way that I built the business to be able to do that. So that if I have to, or if something like that happens, then I just have to knock it back to a couple of hours, and she gets some TV time, which she is not upset about at all.
No. Well, there you go. So you've got that sort of flex, haven't you?
Trying to find what you can manage is the hardest thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I suppose that you've just you've got to just see balance it in your own mind, and then if that's not working, you try something else, or be stricter with yourself. Or it's difficult, though, isn't it? Probably if you get somebody wanting your attention and it's a business piece and they're emailing you, you're very likely to reply, aren't you? Because it's business.
Yeah. And the weirdest thing about it is that if it was somebody else's business, if I was working for somebody else, even if it was even if it was flexible working or whatever it was that was built into it, I would still feel that guilt and that draw, that awful sort of but recently I have really had to let go of that, because I can't always be here, and the business functions perfectly well now without me here, possibly even better without me here.
Okay.
But that, everything ticks over, and which is a very new feeling for me, because I've been I am the one that built it, but then being able to hand things over to people, and when you do that and they take initiative, and it's just brilliant, thanks very much. Rolling with that.
Yeah, I suppose that's just the next step of the business, isn't it? For you, from you just doing everything and knowing how everything was being your finger in all the different pies, to be able to step back and do some different pieces, and it's a change for you.
Yeah, letting go is very hard. Very hard.
Yeah, letting go. I can see that would be, because it's your passion, it's your baby, your other baby.
It is. Yeah, I've got 3 of them. Yeah. This one is definitely more demanding sometimes.
I imagine. I mean, I think it's amazing, being able to run a business and have 2 little young children that aren't in school yet, or one's in nursery. It's amazing.
The funny thing is, I just don't think I had a choice. Not in a weird way, or in a financial way, or in a somebody told me I didn't way. They've all been really natural steps within my brain. Couldn't find a job, created one. Job got too stressful, hired somebody. like that kind of thing. Recently I've struggled with it again, but if I start to struggle with something within the business, it usually means that I am pushing myself too far. I've diversified too widely. I need to pull it back in again. And noticing the stress triggers within myself means that I'm a better business owner in that sense. The difficulty then is that you're so personally linked to everything that you take everything on.
Yes. So it's being self-aware, isn't it, of how, of your triggers, and that's the well-being strand as well, isn't it, of when
definitely
we're working and keeping ourselves healthy. No point in having somebody running a business who's exhausted and can't get off the sofa every day because you've overdone it.
Well, I mean, it's really, really tempting.
Yeah.
And I do cherish the working from home days where I don't get out of my pajamas. If I can fob the nursery run off on my husband on one of his rest days, and I can stay at home with Ona, my youngest, and I can have a working from home / working from bed day with the laptop, like those moments I do cherish.
Yeah, I think most people have like that sort of balance now, not just constantly out there to be able to, you have to for certain reasons and for building teams, or maybe you don't need to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I think the balance, the hybrid working is really working for lots of workplaces now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take any opportunity to go and have a meeting with people in person, but that's because we've worked the last 2 years. We've worked so closely enclosed, Before I started hiring people, this was my only place of work, and I was on my own for most of the pandemic. I would only see my husband, my kids, and I'd be here. So now it's a huge, the world is opening up again. We drove down to Yeovil the other day, which was about a 2-hour drive for a packaging company. Brilliant, thanks very much. Yeah, we'll do that.
Get to see other places.
Yeah, go for a nice drive. Stretch the
life definitely got small, didn't it? It was a weird kind of time.
Yeah, it did.
We just hugged in.
It opened up in a marketing sense, though, massively, because everybody was online. For us, it opened up hugely for the first sort of 6 to 9 months. And then everybody got Zoom fatigue, Instagram fatigue, everything, and then it closed down again. So it's been interesting to watch the patterns of behavior that have come out of it. But yeah, it's not something I want to repeat.
Yeah, I suppose it was quite a hit for lots of people on the mental health again, just isolation and stuff like that.
Which is why I think we're seeing more neurodiversity diagnoses. And I've seen a lot of information come out recently that because of the routine change, the dramatic routine change, a lot of people get away with a lot of people don't realize that they are neurodiverse because they've put so many systems in place where they're okay. People typically get diagnosed with a neurodiverse condition, either going to primary school from being younger, going to secondary school, because that's another change, coming out of full-time education, because that sharp shock going from the safety of 9 till 3:30 after school clubs and everything, then being asked to work in a working world where it might not be okay, or around pregnancy and childbirth with women, because you suddenly go from, like you say, 9 to 5 Monday to Friday to nothing. What do you do?
Yeah. And
there's no manual for that. Nobody tells you, So when we're coming out of the pandemic at the moment, there's a lot of information to suggest that people are getting more diagnoses, that we're seeing a lot more diagnoses of autism and things, especially in women, because of that huge change.
That's interesting. Yeah, because people have been able to manage it at home, and the routine has been so different. You can manage your own environment, can't you?
Yeah, and the shock of opening up again. So the shock of everything stopping and your routine stopping, to then the shock of everything opening up again, the other side of it as well.
Just doing a lot to face again, and not you haven't been used to it.
Yeah, and if you've got out of the habit of it and it's already something that you're not happy about doing, but you've got out of the habit of it. The inclination is to not do it.
Yeah, and I definitely heard people said that they've had a couple of years and they've just been a bit introverted, and now they're just a bit of a hermit. I mean, in now.
That's it, yeah.
Well, it's interesting, but no, that's yeah. I mean, the whole thing about neurodiversity is an interesting topic, really interesting topic, and how your work environment and finding the right one, and the knock-on effects of the pandemic. So I'm sure there's lots of research projects and just things that we're noticing, isn't it? And it's an interesting discussion to take forward. I was thinking we're coming towards the questions, but I want to add one more for you, which was around your next steps for the business. What are you thinking is going to be? Obviously, you've hired, you're hiring people to help, and it's growing. Are there any big burning things you'd like to? You see the business doing, or you just...
So we're moving workshops next week. We're moving into a much bigger space. It's got white walls. I'm very excited. There's lots of lovely light as well.
I have to post a picture of it.
I will do. As a maker, having natural light is just, and which I'm really, really excited about. And then from there, I want to set up a second company. Actually, I want to set up 2 more companies. I reckon I've got another 2 companies coming through this year. One is going to be teaching side. So I want to teach people to do the things that I do. I want to teach them properly, because there are a lot of people that aren't teaching properly, and it drives me nuts, because I've always thought that you need to learn the right way of doing it before you don't, before you can do shortcuts and things. It needs to be done right. Yes. So I want to set up a teaching thing, and I would like to do kits and online training and that kind of thing, because I love meeting people. I love seeing things come together, and I'm hoping to get some guest makers in as well, so that if you want to make a handbag, you can come and print your fabric the first day with somebody, and then the second day we make it into a leather handbag with a nice custom lining that you've made. That's the brainchild at the moment. And then I want to do another company that I want to put down a more luxury leather lifestyle kind of thing as well. That one's still forming, but there needs to be and I think that I think there's a market for both. I think that there's a lot of education that needs to happen as well around leather, high quality leather, like how you select the best cuts, and there's there needs to be more communication, but directly at the customer, not through people, like not through the, oh yes, well if no, that doesn't cut anymore. You want to speak directly to your customer about what you're passionate about, and I think that having that kind of connection with them means that you do build strong customer bonds. So I'm looking forward to doing those. I'm looking forward to having a workshop that is Instagrammable. That's the thing now.
Excellent.
My daughter is very excited that we might be able to fit a sofa in there.
Just for her.
Just for her, because that is apparently where she's going to work when mummy's working. So she's picked that one. I think the dog will be very disappointed because he likes sofas too. But
get them started early.
That's it. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I don't think she would. But she does like to do a lot of drawing and a lot of art while mummy's working. So.
Oh, that's perfect. That's fine, isn't it? Still creative.
I think so. She enjoys that. So one day she might come up with her own designs, but at the moment, you never know.
Yeah,
but,
that sounds great. So the teaching, are you thinking of doing that online, or is that going to be a face-to-face kind of teaching?
Both. I'm thinking about doing both.
Yeah.
I'd really like to make it accessible. I'm thinking at the moment about doing subscription boxes that you sign up for individual products. And what we do is we send out a new tool with each product. So the first one will be something that you need one tool for. The second one will build on that and build on your skill base as well. My idea is to make it as accessible for people as possible, but whilst also giving you that knowledge that you need to make the right decisions when you're choosing leather, when you're choosing products or when you're choosing tools, when you're it really is so true that if you can invest a small amount of money in the right tool, it will see you through for years, and it needs to be the right tool. But teaching people what is the right tool, teaching people what is the right leather, and then making the projects fun, making them relatable. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done there, but it's going to be we're going to do it in the workshop, because we now, or will, touch wood, have the space. And we will also, I want to make it accessible to some of my American customers as well. And I think that's really important too. So
yeah, that sounds great. So it's an educational program basically, and also I suppose a business as well, because it's a paid workshop, but it's educating and giving back the knowledge, isn't it? And
it is, and it's like I learn, because the funny thing about teaching is that you are the ones gifting the knowledge, but then other people come up with ideas, and that sparks a whole conversation, and then from that sparks creativity that never would have come about had you not have invited them into your workspace. So it's a really reciprocal relationship, and one that's really important not to discount, I think. And a lot of people think that teaching is just sort of like, but actually it's vital to me for keeping that conversation going as well. No,
that's right. So being an inspiration and passing on the knowledge it's a real skill. And it's, if you talk to people who's affected them in their lives, they'll often come up with a teacher, won't they? This particular really, so that's
somebody that's passionate about something.
Definitely.
And then on top of that, I want to look at like international shipping and fulfillment for the products that we already have, and look at other manufacturing things. I just, there's a lot going on.
There is. Oh gosh, so I'm all excited now, and I want to see what the new workshop looks like. And it's been such a interesting conversation. We could continue, but I know we've only got an hour. I'm just wondering if anybody who's on the call, our little group, anyone wanted to ask Nu a question or two. As I did say at the beginning, we would give a bit of time. If you've got a question, or are you entrepreneurs? Are you interested in setting up businesses? What kind of areas do you work in?
And that's the interesting thing as well, isn't it? Because I would never have called myself an entrepreneur at all, actually, because I thought entrepreneurs went on Dragon's Den, and I could never see myself doing that, or worked for old Lord Sugar. And again, I could never see myself doing that. And I think the word entrepreneur is really, it's quite a difficult one, because I would consider myself a maker with a business, rather than somebody that's gone full.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Like for me, entrepreneur is like somebody that works behind a desk and does things remotely, which is really kind of a weird view, really. But so I think as a maker, when you set up your own business, it's just a different kind of crazy.
It's just suppose what you determine the term, what that means to each person. Entrepreneur, you feel like it's more of it's not so it's different. It's not, it's more business.
It's not something that I'm not afraid to use when I want to.
You're a creator.
I want to speak in
creative. Well, I don't have any questions. I think everyone's being shy. But I knew you're on Instagram.
I am, yeah. So if anyone does have a question after the fact, or they want to, send us an email or something, so our Instagram is at Hide and Hammer. So it's Hide spelled HIDE and Hammer. Our website is hideandhammer.co.uk, and you can email us from the website. So if you have any questions, or if you'd like a recommendation for some business coaches, or where to go after university, or good places to get work experience or something like that, I'm more than happy to talk you through whatever I can. I like bouncing ideas with people and things. It's all part and parcel, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I mean, that's a great offer, because people might be thinking, oh, how do I start? And your comment about having your business coach and your life coach and making the most of those, and you're running the business, so you could be a great person to recommend. great to. I know you'll be on in LinkedIn, but I'll send in the email as well, your contact details, if that's all right.
Oh, yeah, no, do please. That's great.
The LinkedIn. So
and the thing about, like, you just touched on, where do I start? Oh my God, the amount of people, and it drives me insane, the amount of people that think they have to have everything perfect before they start. Don't do it to yourself. Just start. I really cannot stress enough. And if it's the only thing you take away from the webinar, is just start. There are enough notebooks full of ideas. There are enough people that just, get to the end and go, oh, I really wish I'd done that. Just start it. Just start it.
Yeah.
Because, what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't work, so you do it again, but you've also learned so much more along the way. And you don't
want to have those regrets, and I think it's taking a risk, isn't it? But a lot of people mix to their part-time and different job, and then they build it up. So we'll do it in this time for a little while.
Yeah, and I just think we've got such a. I've noticed it in the UK more than I have abroad. We have a little, I made this thing, it's the tiniest. I made it, and it's just it's okay. But just you make it. Just go out there, show your friends, do.
Oh, she's frozen. I think you're frozen, Nu. Can you hear me? I think she's frozen. I think that we've got to come to the end now because Nu's frozen, but that's fine because we are at the end of our webinar. So that's been.
Nobody's going to see it.
Was that?
I said, if it's in a notebook or if it's in your head, nobody's going to see it, and that will be such a shame, because the world needs more bright, vibrant, creative people to just to live, because it's a bit grey at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's a really nice point to end on, because don't hold back.
Oh, sorry, my internet is
yeah, it was stopped for a little while, but just for a few minutes. But I'm pleased we've got you back, just to sort of just to round up, really. And Anita said thank you very much, wonderful insights, and thank you, Nu.
You're very welcome.
And so it's been great, and I think that's a great high point to end on. Get on with it. If you've got an idea, just
with it. Yeah,
stop messing around.
You never know where it might. Everybody says, I don't know, what if I fail? Well, what if you don't?
Yeah.
What if you start something that in 4 years' time you're sitting on a webinar going, I built this.
Yeah, I did this. Just own it, be confident of your abilities, isn't it? It's a bit like that. And then maybe you do a little bit and it grows and you realise it's starting.
They say that Rome wasn't built in a day, but part of it was. They started on a road, or there was a bit of a bridge that they started building, it wasn't built in a day, but some of it was.
You've got to start somewhere.
You have.
That's a great point. Okay, everybody. So it's been a really interesting evening. Thank you very much. Again, thank you very much, Nu. It's been great, and we've discussed loads of different things, and it's
too much. Sorry, it's a character trait of mine.
No, it's great.
It's
been really good, and I've got lots to think about now. Maybe I've got a creative business in me.
Do it.
Anyway, so thank you for giving your time and for being so enthusiastic to support the alumni community at Brooks, and I hope your next step goes really well with your move to your studio. Post it so I can see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep being brilliant. Keep the energy up. Sounds great.
And like I said, it usually takes me a little while to get back to emails, but if anyone's got emails that they've got any follow-up questions, or they just want to know some ideas or whatever, just send them over.
Brilliant. Thanks for that offer. I'm sure you'll get a few people asking you questions. For the rest of the audience that's still on, we've got one more webinar next week. That's Thursday, about effective leadership, with an alumnus, Steve Cahill, and hosted by Diana Limburg, who's director of MBA program. So if anyone's keen on that subject, I hope to see you then. and have a lovely evening. And again, enjoy your evening, New. And it's been a
so much
pleasure to meet you and talk again.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye. Bye-bye.